You know, I wish that these legislators who want to see this humanitarian cause elevated would instead relocate to the Middle East and let us have America as the freedom-loving individual liberty republic that was established under Judeo-Christian principles. You know, Phil Stargell has a question for you, Dick.
Yeah.
Sure. Hi, Phil.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wondered if you knew about the Syrian project. Isn't there supposed to be a rush to get about 900,000 people from the country of Syria into the country?
Well, the number that's thrown around is varies from place, yes, but there's definitely an attempt. Keep in mind that people in the business of moving, it's kind of a human trafficking industry here. You move people into America, and if you participate in that process, you actually get paid per head. So there's a body, people get paid, and there's a lobbying effort. So these organizations, including the Lutheran services in Michigan, Catholic services, and 7 others, they lobby for more and more migrants, including Syrians coming to America. So the number, one of those 9 organizations is lobbying in Washington for 65,000 Syrians to be placed in the United States just between now and when Obama leaves office. There's another notion that the United Nations has already identified individuals, 10,000 individuals, to move them into America in the next year. And finally, there was a New York Times op-ed within the last week where 2 leftist professors were actually seriously, or not seriously, depending on your perspective, calling for 50,000 Syrians to be moved into the city of Detroit, to repopulate Detroit and bring Detroit back. The problem is, think about this. Let's just step back for a second. Just this week, 20,000 Iraqis, most of them Sunni Muslims. That means they are followers of Sharia, so we're going to come back to that. But there are 20,000 Iraqi Muslims have been displaced because of the battles. The Iraqi army will not let those 20,000 refugees into the city of Baghdad. Why? Because there might be an ISIS terrorist amongst those 20,000. So there's an interesting perspective. In Iraq, they won't let the Sunni Muslims migrate into Baghdad, yet we have open arms to accept as many Syrians, including Muslims, including Sharia adherent people, into America. That's kind of an interesting comparison, and something to watch carefully. So Syrians
as a quick
the number one migration group over the next year.
As a quick follow-up, what is the status on the Chaldeans? And because at one time there was a big push to get some refugee status from the UN, and about a year ago, at the time when there was a lot of remember the cities were stranded up on the mountaintop. At that time, there were groups from the United States going to the UN trying to establish the refugee status for the Chaldeans to get them into the country. Where is that going? How and is there a priority on those Christians?
Well, it's very interesting. The priority typically is not on Christians. Just to answer that question and to tie it back to Syria for a minute. So far we know in the last year we've moved about 800 Syrians into America, and 92% of those Syrians are Muslims.
Dick, we have a couple of callers that would like to ask you questions. We're going to go first to Gary from Hazel Park. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, in company. Hey, sir, from what I'm hearing, it really doesn't matter if we secure the southern border at all, because the government's going to fly these people in first class.
Yeah.
Interesting observation.
They have been flying them in first class.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting comment. And think about it. So the point here is when you want to look, you could focus on a recent announcement related to bringing people into the Southfield area. But when you step back from 30,000 feet and you look at all of the things that are being done to bring the third world into America. What's the third world? Third world, we're typically talking about people who are not necessarily going to make our country better because they have education, they have skills, et cetera. The notion that they start businesses, that is true. And all of us are related to immigrants. We're really not anti-immigrant, but when we have let's face it, a left-wing plan to repopulate America through the open border, through the refugee program, through even lotteries to bring in people, the notion that somehow America needs all of these different groups from South America or the Middle East or anywhere else, and it's an intentional plan supported by the UN. Remember, the UN is largely led by the third world countries, and so it's really taking America down.
Yeah, Dick, in the interest of time, we're going to thank Gary for his call, and we're going to go to Bob from Warren. Bob, good morning.
Morning, Mayor. The gentleman mentioned Lutherans, social services, and the Catholic social services. Could you please name the rest?
I'm going to let you repeat that question because I can't hear it at all.
Yes, sir. You mentioned the Lutherans and the Catholics, bringing them over twice. Would you please tell us the other groups that are doing this instead of just singling out Lutherans and Catholics? I'd appreciate that.
There is a Jewish organization. There's a total of 9. You can go to, if you go to...
would you please name them? Could you name them on the air instead of just naming the Lutherans and the Catholics? That's what I'm trying to get to.
You know what? I can do that I can do that as I go pull them up. But
thank you, Bob.
I'm going to. I don't have them off the top of my head. World Refugee Service, Bethany Services in Michigan, basically the Council of Churches type of organizations. There are 6 of the 9 are religious names, 3 or not. To answer your question, did it right now. So there are 6 religious groups, and I think that's really significant. Keep in mind, nobody here is anti-Catholic or anti-Lutheran. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, this is not money that's coming through the church collection box. This is participation by 6 of the 9 religious named organizations who take money from the federal government, which is everybody's tax money, and deliver bodies in a secret plan and are paid $850 per head and receive additional grants. There's a 133-page report for 2013 which identifies the work of these 9 agencies, and it is dramatic, the hundreds of thousands of people that these organizations move into America. And by the way, keep in mind, most of the parishioners are not aware of what these organizations are doing. 98% of the budgets of the Lutheran and Catholic services organization in this space of refugee resettlement comes from the federal government, not from the members of the church.
Dick, isn't our own representative Candace Miller on a committee on Homeland Security, and has anybody from your group contacted her to see what her opinion is of this?
Well, it's interesting. We can talk a little bit about the politicians. Keep in mind that the politicians in Washington largely will say they don't know anything about this. So let's get to Candace in a minute. Candace, there's one guy who's the head of the Immigration Committee. His name is Trey Gowdy.
Right.
He did not know that his hometown, his district, Spartanburg, South Carolina, was in fact targeted. And he has now sent a letter with 17 questions to Senator Kerry asking, how does this happen, and who are these people, where are they coming from? Candace Miller has come out and indicated a concern about this issue. In fact, she's on a committee that investigates a committee headed by Peter King. So Candace Miller from Macomb is on the committee. Peter King heads it, and they're going to have hearings on the Syrian migration issue. So the question before the committee hearing is, why, in the middle of all the hostilities we have now, why should America continue to take refugees from Syria specifically? So people should be contacting Candace Miller and getting her position on this. I know that she's concerned about borders, so I'm hoping that she's supportive of this. But let me back up for a minute. David Trott, another congressman, is on the committee that Trey Gowdy heads. Again, remember, Trey did not know it was happening. So the question really is, we've got a new congressman named David Trott. Does David Trott know what's happening in his district? Is he aware of, for example, the announcement by Brenda Lawrence, another congressman, from the Southfield area 2 weeks ago that $2.2 million has been awarded to the Lutheran Services Organization to bring, in this case, unaccompanied minors into the Southfield area. Representative Lawrence is enthused about that. On the other hand, the question would be, what does David Trott think about it? He's on the committee, and people should contact him in terms of accountability and find out, is he aware of what's happening in Michigan? I will share with you, most mayors, Lansing representatives, and D.C. representatives from Michigan do not know what we're talking about. So it would be a good question to follow up with.
That would indeed. Dick, I'm wondering if you can stay with us after the break so that we can continue this important discussion. Again, I say that the people who we have elevated into positions of leadership are so clueless and so behind the times that, thank God, we have men and women like you, like Chris Ann Hall, like Trevor Loudon, who bring these issues to light. Where did your group first hear of this? How did this come about?
Well, by the way, I appreciate you mentioning Trevor Loudon. Let me just say that our groups, since he's come to Michigan, we've been focusing on these national issues. We basically were exposed to Ann Corcoran 2 months ago through just finding out about her, and then we actually Skyped her at a meeting last week. And I will share with you also that, Ann started just like, you or me or any of the listeners here, just a neighbor down the street who found out something 7 years ago. That's what she talked about. And now, all of a sudden, now people, because of
Dick, Dick, I hate to interrupt you. You're so interesting.